I still remember how she said it. Right as she adjusted her lipstick in the reflection of the car window, her voice tight, controlled, the way she talked when she wanted me to behave like a prop and not a husband. "Don't embarrass me tonight," she whispered, like it was some kind of warning, like I was a ticking bomb she had to keep on a leash. It was strange hearing that from a woman who'd spent the whole ride texting someone with a smile she hadn't used on me in months. I just sat there watching the way her fingers danced across the screen, fast, nervous, excited in a way she never was around me anymore. She didn't notice. She didn't care if she did. By the time we walked into the holiday dinner, she had already slipped into her performance mode. The charming wife, the social butterfly, the woman who laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. And right beside her was her coworker, Ethan. Tall, loud, overconfident, the kind of guy who acted like every room existed so he could walk into it. She kept touching his arm when she talked, leaning in too close, smiling too wide, acting like I was just furniture placed nearby. I felt every touch like a tap on the shoulder, every laugh like a splash of cold water. But I didn't say a word. I didn't roll my eyes or pull her aside or ask what she thought she was doing. I didn't have to. I just watched. And the thing about people who lie for long enough is that they stop paying attention to the people who already know the truth. As the dinner went on, she kept giving me those quick, irritated glances, the ones that meant, "Don't ruin this for me." I answered every single one with a smile, a calm one, the kind that confused her because she expected anger or jealousy or anything loud. She didn't recognize calm as danger. Most guilty people don't. Her voice dropped low at one point when she leaned toward me between courses. "Can you not look so tense? People are watching." I wasn't tense. I was thinking. I was remembering the late nights, the unexplained work dinners, the perfume that wasn't hers, the silence in our house growing like a bruise. I was remembering the moment I realized she wasn't just drifting away. She was leaving breadcrumbs for someone else. The hook came at the exact moment she looked at me again, waiting for a reaction while Ethan laughed beside her. She whispered, "Please don't embarrass me." And I smiled, leaned just close enough for her to hear me over the chatter of the room, and said, "Funny. Your lover already did. If ви слухаєте це, підпишіться на канал, дал буде тільки сильніше." She froze, but only for a breath. Then she laughed, like it was a joke, like I was being dramatic again, except I wasn't joking, and the rest of the night was already in motion. I didn't start it. I didn't have to, because the most brutal scenes are always the ones created by the guilty, not the betrayed. She tried to recover fast, the way people do when they know a crack just appeared in the mask they worked too hard to keep steady. She straightened her posture, forced a smile, squeezed Ethan's arm with a little extra pressure, as if to signal she was still in control, still adored, still untouchable. And she spoke louder, too loudly for the moment, saying something about the dessert being late, pretending everything was normal. But I could feel her eyes on me every few seconds, sharp, checking, worried. She wasn't scared I'd yell. I'd never been the yelling type. She was scared because I wasn't doing anything at all. That's the thing people never understand. Silence is not weakness, it's preparation. And I had been preparing for a long time. The dinner continued, conversations flowing from table to table, people laughing, wine glasses clinking, silverware tapping plates. A cozy, polished, festive atmosphere. If you ignored the way my wife's hand shook every time she picked up her glass. Ethan didn't notice. He was too busy leaning in, showing her something on his phone, something that made her bite her lip before glancing at me, checking if I'd seen. I had. Of course I had. Her guilt wasn't subtle. It never had been. I remained quiet, watching the chandelier's reflection ripple over the glasses, listening to the hum of music in the background, feeling the tension between us grow so thick it pressed against my ribs. She whispered once more, pretending to adjust the napkin in her lap. "Can we not do this here?" I didn't answer. I didn't tilt my head. I didn't even blink in her direction. That silence hit her harder than anything I could have said. I could see the panic beginning to simmer beneath her mascara and perfect holiday makeup. She leaned closer, her voice a tight hiss meant only for me. "What are you planning?" I still didn't answer. I knew something she didn't. I wasn't planning anything. I didn't need to. The evening had its own momentum, and she was the one who set it rolling weeks ago. Meanwhile, Ethan's phone buzzed again on the table. This time my wife reached for it before he did, glancing at the screen as if she had the right. She did it so casually, so confidently, that I wondered if she even remembered I was sitting there. But I wasn't the one she'd forgotten. She'd forgotten his wife, the woman who'd once stood by him at company events, the woman who'd sent him homemade lunches, the woman who'd started texting me 2 nights ago, her words shaking through the screen. "Can we talk? I think something is going on with them." I hadn't started that conversation. She had. I just listened. And what she showed me, those screenshots, those late-night messages, the location-sharing mishap, they were enough to make any man burn. But I didn't burn. I froze. And now, at this dinner, that woman was already on her way. My wife had no idea. She kept shifting in her seat, fidgeting, her breath getting shallow. She knew something was wrong but couldn't figure out the shape of it. And guilt makes people paranoid, jumpy, desperate to keep control while everything slides out of their reach. She tried again. "Tell me what you meant earlier," she whispered. "About embarrassing me." The irony almost made me laugh. She thought I was the danger. She didn't understand that her own choices were walking straight toward her, wearing heels. I finally looked at her, just once, slowly, the way you look at someone when you're done pretending. That look made her flinch harder than any words. She turned away quickly, grabbing her water, swallowing hard. The room felt warm, too warm for December. Or maybe that was just her panic climbing her throat. Another toast began. Something about the end of the year, teamwork, gratitude, all the predictable things. But my attention wasn't on the speech. It was on the entrance behind the speaker. The doors were opening. I saw her first, Ethan's wife, standing tall, her expression carved from cold stone, her phone glowing in her hand like a small, bright knife. She scanned the room, saw the two of them sitting together, saw their hands too close, their smiles too practiced, and she began walking toward us without hesitation. My wife didn't see her yet. Ethan didn't see her either. But I did. And I didn't move. I didn't warn them. I didn't breathe a word. I simply shifted my chair 2 inches to the left. Just enough space for one more person at the table. That was all the preparation the moment needed. The rest was already written by their own hands. Ethan's wife walked with a kind of calm that made the entire room sense something was about to break. It wasn't the calm of someone holding themselves together. It was the calm of someone who already knew the truth and had stopped pretending it didn't exist. Her heels clicked in slow, steady rhythm against the polished floor, echoing louder than the music, louder than the murmurs of people chatting through half-finished desserts. Some guests noticed her and turned to look, their conversations tapering off in mid-sentence. Even from a distance, she radiated the kind of energy that makes people instinctively sit up straighter, unsure if they should step aside or stay out of the way. My wife still hadn't seen her. She was too busy trying to read my face, searching for clues I refused to give. She shifted in her seat again, twisting her wedding ring with restless fingers, her knee bouncing under the table. Every few seconds she glanced at Ethan, forcing another smile, pretending everything was normal even as panic flickered beneath her skin. But when a room goes quiet in waves, even the most self-absorbed person eventually feels it. She noticed it when Ethan paused mid-laugh, confused by the sudden stillness. He looked toward the doorway and froze. My wife followed his gaze. And there it was, the moment her entire world cracked. Ethan's wife stood only a few feet away now, the phone in her hand raised slightly, the screen still lit. My wife's eyes widened, her lips parting soundlessly as color drained from her face. The room wasn't fully silent yet, but it was close enough that I heard the tiny gasp she tried to swallow. She turned to me, her breath trembling. Did you know she was coming?" I didn't answer. My silence said enough. Ethan was already stumbling to his feet, trying to intercept his wife before she reached the table. "Jessica, hey, wait, let's talk in private." She didn't even look at him. It was like he was a shadow on the floor, a background noise she had grown tired of ignoring. She stopped right beside my chair. I gently pushed my seat back a little farther, creating a clear, undeniable space at the table. My wife stared at that empty space as if it were a trapdoor she was about to fall through. Jessica looked at me first. Just me. Her eyes softened for a brief second, the kind of silent acknowledgement shared between two people who didn't choose to be connected but were forced into the same storm. Then she looked at my wife, and the softness vanished. She placed her phone on the table screen up. The bright text glowed between the wine glasses and silverware. A message thread. His name at the top, my wife's name beneath it, and the last line, bold and impossible to ignore. Can't wait to sneak out tonight. Same place. The entire table went still all at once. Someone at the next table choked on their drink. A fork clattered to the floor. Ethan's mouth opened and closed like he was searching for a lie good enough to save him. None came. My wife's hands flew to her face, then dropped, shaking. It's not what it looks like, she stammered, the classic line, the first weapon of the guilty. Jessica finally spoke, her voice so steady it cut through the air like a blade. It's exactly what it looks like. My wife's eyes darted to me, begging, pleading, searching for some sign of protection or denial or rescue. But she had mistaken me for someone who still owed her something. I sat still, hands folded, heart calm. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to stand. I didn't need revenge. The moment was already doing the work on its own. The silence in the room grew heavy, the kind that crushes people who built their worlds on lies. My wife's breath hitched, her voice breaking into fragments. Please, this isn't. I didn't. She looked so small suddenly, so desperate, so exposed. I remembered all the times she dismissed my concerns, all the nights she came home late smelling like someone else's cologne, all the excuses that didn't add up. I remembered the way she told me not to embarrass her tonight. And now she couldn't even stand from her chair without the whole room watching her fall apart. Ethan reached for Jessica's arm, but she stepped back, refusing his touch. You humiliated yourself, she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Don't drag me into your mess. My wife tried to get up, but her legs wobbled, and she sank back down. Tears gathered in her eyes, spilling over the edge of her carefully applied makeup. She wasn't used to consequences. She wasn't used to being the one on the receiving end. She wasn't used to the world seeing her without the perfect shine she always tried to force into place. She turned to me again, whispering my name, begging for something. Understanding, forgiveness, escape, anything. But I simply sat there, steady, calm, watching the truth unravel right in front of her. Because this wasn't my scene. I didn't create it. Her lover did. And all I had to do was give the truth a place to sit. The strange thing about a moment like that is how slowly everything seems to move, even though the truth hits faster than any physical blow. My wife sat there trembling, her breath caught somewhere between a sob and a scream, unable to figure out whether she should defend herself, deny everything, or beg. She kept shifting in her seat, like her body was trying to run even though there was nowhere left to go. Her fingers twitched toward the phone on the table, then recoiled as if the screen were burning her skin. She looked at me, then at Jessica, then at Ethan as if someone, anyone, might step in and tell her what to do. But the room wasn't on her side. Not tonight. She had spent so long crafting an image, convincing people she was the put-together one, the sweet one, the responsible one, the one who kept the family running while I was too quiet or too distant or not social enough. And now she was sitting in the middle of a dinner surrounded by colleagues and their spouses, with her affair laid out on a glowing screen between the silver forks and linen napkins. The quiet in the room deepened even more. It wasn't pity. It was disbelief mixed with secondhand embarrassment, the kind that makes people avert their eyes but listen harder. Ethan's voice broke first. Jess, please, let's just talk outside. She didn't look at him. Talk? She said, her tone razor-sharp. Oh, now you want to talk? After 2 months of lying to me? After taking her to the same hotel you used for our anniversary? The room erupted into whispered gasps. My wife jerked as if the words had physically struck her. That's not. "That's not true," she cried, but even her voice betrayed her. Thin, cracking, desperate. Jessica held up another photo. A hotel lobby, time-stamped, unmistakable. "It is." My wife turned to Ethan in horror. "You told me you weren't using the same place." The entire room reacted to that sentence. A murmur rippled through the tables. Forks paused mid-air. Someone muttered, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. My wife realized what she had just admitted out loud, and her hands flew to her mouth, eyes wide with terror. She didn't just expose herself. She exposed him too. Ethan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "Why would you say that here?" he hissed. "Do you know how this looks?" "Looks," Jessica snapped. "It looks like exactly what it is. You lied to me. You lied to her husband. You lied to every person in this room." My wife whispered, "Please, stop, stop. Can we not do this?" But Jessica wasn't talking to her. Her eyes were locked on Ethan. "You ruined our marriage," she said, her voice trembling but unwavering. "You threw away everything we built. And for what? Sneaking around like teenagers? Whispering secrets in office hallways. Lying to your own kids when you said you were working late." A woman at a nearby table covered her mouth. A man shook his head, whispering something to his partner. Ethan tried to reach for Jessica again, but she stepped back sharply. "Don't touch me," she said, each word clipped and cold. "Not tonight. Not ever again." My wife's panic grew into something almost feral. She looked at me again, pleading with her eyes, as if I might step in and save her from drowning in the truth. As if I hadn't drowned alone months ago while she was too busy sneaking around to notice. "Please," she whispered to me, her voice breaking. "Can't we go somewhere private? Can we talk?" I leaned back slightly, not enough to be dramatic, just enough to show I was comfortable, steady, in control. "You told me not to embarrass you tonight," I said quietly. "I'm just listening." She shook her head quickly, tears spilling. "I didn't mean it like that. This isn't—" "No," Jessica cut in, her eyes locking onto my wife with a force that made her shrink in her seat. "This is exactly what you meant. You want silence, not honesty. You want comfort, not consequences." My wife pressed a hand to her chest as if struggling to breathe. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not sure to whom she was apologizing. "Jessica, me, the room herself. I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen." Jessica's jaw tightened. "Then you shouldn't have done it." Ethan tried again, voice cracking this time. "Jess, we can fix this." "No," she said, her voice steady as steel. "You can live with the person you chose. She's right there." My wife started crying harder, shaking her head, muttering, "No, no, no," as if she could rewind the last 5 minutes by sheer will. But nothing was going to save her now. Not charm, not excuses, not tears. She reached for my hand under the table, but I moved just slightly, letting her grasp the empty air instead. Her breath shattered in her chest. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't leave me alone here." But that was the irony she could no longer escape. She hadn't been alone. Not for months. And now, in front of everyone, she had to live with the weight of what she had created. The truth didn't just sit at our table. Took her seat. And everyone watched as she realized she couldn't take it back. For a long moment after that, the entire room existed in a kind of suspended disbelief. The music had faded into background static, the conversations dissolved, and every pair of eyes was fixed on our table. On the wreckage of 2 marriages, on the woman who thought she could control the night, on the man she betrayed, on the wife of her lover holding the truth like a torch in the dark. My wife's tears were streaming openly now, carving uneven lines down her cheeks, dissolving the makeup she had spent an hour perfecting. She kept wiping at her face as if she could erase the moment, as if smudged mascara could undo months of lies. She wasn't crying because she loved me. She wasn't crying because she hurt me. She was crying because she finally felt the spotlight she had always wanted, but not the kind she could survive under. She looked at me again, trying to pull herself together, whispering with a voice barely strong enough to reach across the table. "Please? Can we just go home?" We can figure it out there. Just, just don't leave me here. Home. A place she had turned into a waiting room for excuses. A place she walked into late and walked out of early. A place where she kept her real life hidden in the shadows of her phone. Her purse, her little trips. I stood up slowly, not abruptly, not in anger, just clarity. The kind of clarity you only get when you finally stop begging for someone to be who they promised they were. Chairs scraped softly as people turned to watch. My wife grabbed my wrist, her hand shaking violently. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking so hard it almost wasn't a voice at all. "Don't leave me like this. Not here. Not in front of everyone." I looked down at her hand, at the same hand she had used to hide her phone from me, to text him under the table, to touch him at that dinner earlier tonight, and gently pulled my wrist free. "You told me not to embarrass you," I said quietly. I respected that. Her breath hitched, her eyes pleading, but I wasn't done. "But you never respected me." That was the first truth spoken between us in months. Jessica stepped aside so I could move past her, giving me a slight nod of understanding. Not approval, not victory, just acknowledgement of a man finally reaching the end of his patience. Ethan tried to follow me, babbling something to my wife about working it out, but Jessica blocked him with a quiet, devastating, "Don't." The room parted as I walked toward the exit, not dramatically, not triumphantly, just plainly, as a man who no longer owed anyone a performance. Behind me, I heard my wife's chair scrape as she stood abruptly. Then came the sound of her heels pounding against the floor as she rushed after me. "Wait, please." Her voice echoed through the hall, trembling and broken. I didn't speed up. I didn't turn around. I kept walking, letting the cool winter air from the lobby wash over me as the door swung open. She caught up just as I reached the entrance, grabbing my arm with both hands this time, desperate, frantic. "Don't leave," she begged through sobs. "Don't do this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. I'll do anything." I looked at her, really looked at her. Not the version she tried to present, not the one she polished for the world, but the frightened woman who had built a trap and fallen into it herself. "You didn't make a mistake," I said calmly. "Mistakes happen once. Choices happen over and over." She shook her head violently, mascara streaking down her face. "Please," she whispered, voice shaking. "I can't do this without you." I thought about the months I had spent alone while she was working late. I thought about the texts she hid, the lies she repeated so easily, the way she pushed me aside while pulling someone else closer. "You already did," I said. She broke. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor right there in the entryway, crying into her hands as people walking past pretended not to stare. I didn't kneel beside her. I didn't reach out. I didn't soothe her embarrassment. She had made her choices privately and exposed them publicly. I had nothing left to protect. I stepped outside into the cold night, the air sharp and clean in a way my life hadn't felt in months. I didn't look back, not because I wanted her to hurt, but because I was finally done letting her pain erase mine. I walked toward the parking lot, keys in hand, feeling the weight lift with each step. Behind me, through the glass doors, I saw Jessica standing over my wife. Not gloating, not triumphant, just observing the aftermath of what both of them had uncovered. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. If you're still listening, subscribe for more stories. Your support means a lot.